Okay, so I want to try my utmost to talk about this situation, the Spurs, Tottenham Hotspur, of late. Probably best thing I want to do, obviously, keep it short as possible, but an observation of what what happened, what's been happening lately, and it's been a steady decline in terms of the quality of games, in terms of the output of the players and the energy of the players, and as a result, now what we're seeing is a decline in the amount of chances created, which is resulting in less goals scored, which means more losses, obviously. And we can't rely on a defence. We're a team that tries to outscore opponents, and the wheels run dry. So a little bit of a observation. I think just trying to keep it as objective as possible. So if you look at the way we play, obviously Ange Ball, the most important and the starting point of Ange Ball is where when the other team has the ball, has possession, players take their position, our players, right? And it looks like they're in a zone. And then what happens is the striker, centre forward, will start to press slowly, usually a centre back with the ball at his feet. Then when if the centre back does not play long, which usually they'll try and retain possession, most teams in the EPL, will play back to his keeper, and Son will, if it's a centre forward, in this case being Son, and that's the Villa game, will press the keeper, and then as soon as the centre forward starts pressing the keeper, then your attacking midfielders, left and right, try to follow suit. They try to be in tandem and in sync, if you like. Obviously, the challenge has been the constant changes in the side, and significant changes. But so, with that in mind, I believe that is the cornerstone or the foundation of Ange Ball. Because what happens is we kind of box them in, and we either force the ball back, we win the ball back. Hopefully, we don't give away those bailout free kicks that Aston Villa seemed to get a lot early on in that game. The slightest nick and the bloke goes down and rolling around like he's been shot, and that's part of the game, unfortunately. If we don't give away those free kicks, what happens is you'll notice that Son or Richarlison or Solanke before them would pressure the keeper into a long ball, and ideally it's not an accurate one, or at least a contestable ball, right? So it's not one the attacker can just run onto and cause problems. And what helps with that is when we have our starting centre backs, they squeeze forward with that high line, that famous high line, and you'll have Romero, and who's stronger, not as fast, and you have Van der Ven, who's the quickest, obviously the quickest centre back by far in Europe, and also quite good in the air because he's quite tall, and they will contest those balls and keep the squeeze going, right? And there's a lot of good things in theory with that. And what happens is when the attackers and midfielders have to backtrack, they don't have to come back 50 metres. They have to come back 30 metres, for instance, right? When they're helping with the press, and then they try and win the ball back, or try and force an offside trap, or force the other team to play it back because they can't get through because of the squeeze and the gap between the defence and the midfield, and then obviously the forwards. The gaps, there's no space between the lines, as they say in football, and then we can just keep squeezing and then building pressure and then slowly creeping up closer to goal. And then we used to see our wing backs right at the edge of the box, slightly infield, and just trying to control games this way. Now, what we saw instead, and we have seen for some time, in my opinion, is that we're seeing, rather than obviously Van der Ven and Romero, we're seeing Radu, who's not bad, Dragosin, but we're seeing, unfortunately, what's his name, Archie Gray, to filling in, and Ben Davies also doing that, as we all know. The reason I bring them up is they don't quite have the attributes and the natural inclination to do that. They may have tried because Ange told them to before, but now you'll find they're backtracking. They're backtracking a lot. So as soon as the other team turns over the ball, whether it's we'll get the ball and they beat our midfield, or whether it's a long ball from the keeper, it's becoming easier for teams to get past that squeeze, and it's no longer a squeeze. It's a lot of space, because the gaps between these backtracking centre backs and then the midfield is huge. You're looking at 50, 60 metres a lot of the times on the wide view. And if the opposition attackers are beyond our midfield, with maybe one or two midfielders, quickly the centre-backs are outnumbered. And you saw that a lot. You saw that a lot against Liverpool. They were just too smart, and they ground out a 4-0 win. It doesn't even make sense, but ground out is usually reserved for a 1-0, but they were just too good. It was a bridge too far. But Villa, they could have scored 4 or 5, frankly, at least, because they kept punching holes, particularly that first 30 minutes. I think they just ran out of steam, and we were lucky not to concede more than the one in the first half. And in the second half, we had Bissouma kind of helping out and do what he does, which is drop in and help the centre-backs when needed, which made it a lot better for us, right? But sidetrack of a sidetrack. So you can see the difference was the big gap with the centre-backs going backwards when they should be going forwards, in theory. And our midfields, our centre mids, are meant to be the clean-up crew, and they just can't keep up. It's just the ball's going everywhere. We're playing again with 4 attackers, essentially, and leaving the midfield exposed. And it's just it's a really tough. It's a really tough watch. As much as we try, and I think that's why Ange also, just on the topic of the players backtracking and not really playing anything close to Ange Ball at the moment, I think Ange, he still praises them. One, because they don't want to lose the dressing room. They already no point kicking them when they're down, right? 2, he knows how tired they are, and 3, he knows that really they can't. He's not the type of players that he would prefer. They're squad players. They're meant to be a backup plan, a last resort, maybe slot 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 of them into the core group that know the system and can do it, can pull it off, right? Obviously, you have the other contributing factors like the young factor, the fatigue factor, as we mentioned, and as Ange mentions every single press conference for the last month. It's just we can't rotate. There's too many games. There's not much I can do. You can only whip them so much. Be whipping a dead horse after a while. But yeah, so the conclusion for me is I think Ange Ball can still work. It can work. We need our players. Putting aside the reason for the injuries, we don't know. Is it Ange's style? Is it his training? Has he not found the balance between training and rest, or understood the significance of rest time? Did he rush and book more training sessions to try and get everyone on the same page in terms of fitness and in terms of philosophy, right? So we don't know. Or is it just potluck? Van der Ven, for all we know, he may be one of those guys, unfortunately, that might have chronic hamstring injuries, which is common with people of his build. Quite tall, quite slender, because when he runs, he sprints, and he's only early 20s, so he's still growing. It's not necessarily filled out physically. It can happen, things like that. And then obviously, I think Romero's injuries were more luck. I mean, you look at the first game when he scored a goal and then he had that horrific head injury. That was freak accident. And then a similar head injury, which for some reason we can't get any footage of, with Rodrigo Bentancur. These are luck things, and hamstrings going, and calves. Hamstrings and calves are from overworking. So the injuries that happened progressively were players that were playing a lot. Even if they weren't playing the full 90 minutes, they were playing every 3 days for 2.5 months, as Ange keeps saying. But if we can get some players back and play once a week for a while, which is what's going to happen with Europa, not quite back yet, we get some momentum, get some confidence, get some cohesion, and we might be able to salvage this season. Sorry for the 10 minutes. It's really, it's a complex issue. It's a complex problem. I think it's a time for calm, and time for patience. Believe me, I've seen it all. I've only been following our wonderful club for since 2009, so not that long. I'm new, obviously, in Australia. We didn't have much EPL till cable TV came out and whatnot. And I chose Tottenham for my reasons, and I remember staying up to 2 a.m. here and watching them lose 2-0 at home to Bolton Wanderers. Like it's been really bad, and obviously I stayed up and watched the Ajax game, and that was just euphoria. It was amazing, the Champions League game. So we've seen the highs and lows. We all have, but let's not turn on each other. Let's be calm. Think about it. Just think. It's. There are so many factors. It's easy to point fingers and blame Ange. Oh, he's never been there. He doesn't know what he's doing. But the guys, like he's achieved some things. You might say it's in poor leagues. Now I'm really stretching it here at 11 minutes. But I will say this: you might say it's a poor league where he's won. But apart from Celtic, he's won leagues, and I've seen him win the league here in Australia, in the A-League. He's won leagues where, while the league is poor, the team quality, budget, facilities, coaches, sports science, all that stuff is on par with every team. So what that means is, when he coached a team where they were playing against teams at even level. So there was hardly any quality in A-League, even with the marquee players, the signings. There were usually 30, 35-year-old big names just to draw crowds, and not necessarily players that could single-handedly turn games. So all the A-League teams, the difference was tactics, and the difference in players, very minimal difference in players. I can tell you that firsthand. Anyways, you may disagree, whatever. They're just, come on, you Spurs. Wow.